quarterback needs to understand what it is to be a leader in the huddle. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is something that Shedeur Sanders is not. Shedeur Sanders is a guy that thinks of himself before everybody else. Deion Sanders, as much as you look at his talents over the years, calling himself prime, and everybody saw his ability to play professional baseball and professional football in the same season, was all about himself. He was never a team player. Never. And he was a corner, one of the greatest corners to ever play the game. One of the main reasons why Shedeur Sanders was not a first-round pick this year was because of his father. Because of the way his father stands out in the public eye, speaking to the media and saying that his son is not only going to be a great quarterback in the league, he's going to be amongst the best in the NFL. His son, who was rapping during the draft, yes, after the first round and him not getting drafted, he was hanging out in the booth trying to put out a mix of whatever he was trying to rap to. To me, that doesn't show dedication. That doesn't show me that Shedeur Sanders I want as my quarterback of my football team. He played for Colorado. They play in a conference that is not the SEC. It's not. It's not an elite conference. As a matter of fact, if you look at Shedeur Sanders against the top defenses he's ever played against, which, by the way, were not in the top 20 in the last year of his NCAA career, he wasn't good. If he was going to be the best quarterback in this class, why wasn't he up for a Heisman? Why did we see many videos out there on social media that him and Ward, yes, the number one pick of this year's draft from the Tennessee Titans, hanging out and throwing a football, and Ward telling him, take off your hat, act like a professional? Why is it that Shedeur Sanders, whenever he was spotted on social media or on video that was posted, showing that he had no respect for the game and the way the game should be played? And that, to me, stands out more than anything RG3 has to say about him. This guy had a very short career. Washington moved up, traded 3 first-round draft picks to move up to get RG3. Yes, he was Rookie of the Year. Yes, they made a run all the way to the playoffs before he tore his ACL. But he could never get over the hump because of the knee injuries that he's had over the years, from college to the pros. So his career really was washed away with injuries. The same year, Kirk Cousins was drafted in the 4th round by the Commanders and eventually became, I would say, one of the top 10 quarterbacks in all of the NFL. RG3 has been sour really since he's come into the league, not just at the Commanders, but from the NFL's perspective. And he looks at, obviously, the quarterback position and says that he knows just as much as anybody when it comes to analyzing the quarterback position. I look at RG3 and his thought, and I stutter on it because his thought of quarterback play is very unique. When RG3 came into the league, he wasn't accurate. He had a very good arm, but wasn't accurate at throwing it. And he was more of a track and field hurdles runner. Anybody that knows anything about RG3, he was an all-world track and field runner. He thought he could do that in the NFL at his size. And he didn't really understand what it was to be a pocket-present quarterback. And now the NFL has transitioned. Michael Vick, Randall Cunningham, Steve McNair, just a few quarterbacks. There were mobile quarterbacks that transitioned to now the quarterbacks of Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. In between those quarterbacks lived a quarterback named RG3. You're going to tell me right now, RG, that the Browns gave Shedeur Sanders a position to fail because they drafted Dillon Gabriel before him? Dillon Gabriel was drafted in the 3rd round. Nobody, including the Browns, would have thought that Shedeur Sanders would be sitting there in the 5th round. Here's the problem, and here's the facts here. They didn't really like Shedeur Sanders as much as they liked Dillon Gabriel. And if you look at the depth charts, before Dillon Gabriel went down with his injury, he was ahead of Shedeur Sanders. And by the way, Dillon Gabriel was a Heisman Trophy candidate. Shedeur was not. And I sit here and I'm preaching to everybody that knows Shedeur Sanders. I don't even know the guy. I just know of him, and I know his mouth. And, everybody calls me the mouth on this show. And I do have a big mouth. And I do like to throw people under the bus. And everybody knows I'm not a big Sanders fan. Here's the facts. When you look at a player, and a player thinks he's bigger than the game, and a player that was drafted in the 5th round just got a contract selling his jersey over $15 million, more than any of the guys drafted in the 1st round, it tells me there's something wrong with the game. Because of his last name in Sanders and who his father is, people think that this guy is going to be like his dad. He plays the quarterback position, the hardest position in sports. RG3 knows about how hard the position was. He didn't last. His career was as gutless as any quarterback that was drafted and teams giving up as much as they did as Washington did moving up to get him. Do we remember who was drafted ahead of him? His name? Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck, who retired from the game. He walked away from the game. He walked away from the game after getting a huge contract by the Indianapolis Colts. He didn't make excuses about the team. He didn't make excuses about the game. And he definitely didn't point his fingers at other players that were drafted in the same draft as he was. RG3 is a crybaby. Shedeur Sanders, we're going to learn very quickly how many times this man is going to cry because he's not going to be starting for this Browns team this year. He might not start next year. He might never start on this Browns team. And I'm going to tell you this. Rookie of the year or no rookie of the year, we have seen many players win that honor. And many of those players not have long careers. So, yeah, Eddie Lacy being one of them. I can name a bunch of them. To me, it's pathetic that somebody like RG3 is the one that's sticking up for Shedeur Sanders. If Shedeur Sanders wants somebody to speak for him, it wouldn't and it shouldn't be RG3. RG3 is not the person that should be coming out in the public eye and in the media world sticking up for Shedeur Sanders, especially when Shedeur Sanders over the last couple of weeks has been contradictive on everything he has said to the media, not only after Browns practices, but even offset when he's signing autographs and he's saying it to young children that are asking for his autograph. And by the way, Kenny Pickett was never going to make this team. Just so everybody knows. Kenny Pickett was brought in here to challenge Shedeur Sanders. The guy that's starting for this team is Joe Flacco. And if the season moves forward and Joe Flacco can stay healthy, if this offensive line can keep him on his feet, you will not see Dillon Gabriel and you will not see Shedeur Sanders unless this team completely falls out in the AFC North. And then they're going to try to see who is going to be their quarterback next year because Deshaun Watson is going to be bought out after this year. I would really like to hear some of the big name guys, some of the big quarterbacks that right now, Steve Young. If Steve Young came out and stuck up for Shedeur Sanders, that's saying something. If one of these top-end Hall of Fame quarterbacks came out and stood out and stuck up for a guy like Shedeur Sanders, I would take their word for it. RG3, it doesn't sell me. RG3 doesn't sell me anything. And his yapping away saying that they shouldn't have drafted Dillon Gabriel, this guy was a Heisman Trophy candidate. He was one of the top 4 quarterbacks in the nation. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Shedeur Sanders was not. And Dillon Gabriel is in a better conference playing for Oregon than, yes, the one and only Shedeur Sanders. So I don't want to hear anybody, including a guy like RG3, taking shots at the Browns organization. They brought you there, RG3, and you failed to achieve anything when you were there.